Thank you for meeting with me. What's rewarding about your job?
It's honestly like making connections with people. You start off and you have to kind of build that trust and build that relationship. But once you have that, they start asking, how's your daughter? How's your husband? How's your house that you just bought? Eventually you get to a point where you're sharing a lot of yourself with them and they're sharing a lot of themselves with you. And it's a deep connection, it's a deep relationship as far as you care about them and they care about you. And so it's really rewarding to be that for somebody and to be able to help them.
What are the requirements for your job?
Yeah, so my boss always says that they can teach you the paperwork part, but they can't teach you to be a good person. So, you have to be a genuinely kind and caring person. You have to be comfortable with having some not so great conversations, be able to have those hard conversations. Pretty detail oriented. A lot of the work that we do is pretty detailed and it takes a lot of documentation. You have to be able to create your own schedule, kind of work on your own terms, but meet multiple deadlines. So pretty organized.
Describe a typical workday.
I play lots of different people for a lot of different people. So sometimes, as a case manager, you kind of have information about all these different things. And when someone comes to you with a problem, your brain instantly starts going to how do I solve this problem? And so, whether it's I have the answer and I can solve the problem, or I know a resource that I can connect you with. Sometimes it feels like I'm kind of like an operator, I'm like, oh, you need this number. Let me give it to you so you can call them and ask them about it. Or I need you to do this and then get back to me and tell me what they said. And then I'll do my part kind of thing. I've had people call me, after they break up with their significant other and they just need somebody to talk to, not necessarily like a counselor, but, just listening and being that person that cares and letting them know it's going to be okay. There's other fish in the sea, it kind of varies. And there's some people that need my mom voice of, you can do this, you're fine, let's go, you got it. It just kind of changes day to day. I don't think every day is different. Basically, I could get a call and it's a crisis, or I could get a call and it's happy news, or I could get a call and it's an expected call. It kind of just depends on the day and it depends on the people. So,
what advice do you have for students who might want to do similar work in their own communities?
Yeah, so I honestly would start with volunteering. So there's programs like Special Olympics, and really start volunteering your time and see if that's kind of the environment that you're feeling. And if you think that you're able to communicate with people and do, some of the caring and stuff like that, I think that's a kind of a good way to gauge whether or not it's the right career for you. I also think that you should just be open to different possibilities, because if I hadn't been open to it, I probably wouldn't have gone for it and I wouldn't have been thankful, for the job, because it wasn't even in the realm of things that I was thinking about.
Do you have any advice for students who might be considering college?
Yeah, so my parents were always like, you need to finish high school so that you don't have to work in a cannery, because that's what they did. And, it's hard work. And they're like, it's a dead end job. We don't want that for you. You need to do better. And their focus was, you got to graduate high school, which I was like, yeah, sure, great. But I had some great teachers that I think saw potential in me and really started asking me about college and asking me where I was going to apply and asking me where I was going to go. And I hadn't even thought about it, honestly. And they really took the time to help me through it. So I took a free class, early release or whatever. And one of the computer lab teachers allowed me to go in there during that period and work on my college applications and work on FAFSA. and he would kind of help me troubleshoot. So he helped me ask, he answered some of my questions, and he kind of explained to me how FAFSA worked and all that stuff. And then I had to explain it to my parents, and it was really hard, but it was really worth it.
What advice would you give for students who are unsure about college versus career?
Yeah, so I went to college, 4-year college, finished or whatever. My husband did not go to college. He decided to go through a vocational path, and he's doing really great. He has pretty bad ADHD, so he needs that hands-on movement, constantly going kind of thing. I was more book smart, so that's why college was kind of my choice, because I loved high school and I loved school. Like, school was my thing. He was the complete opposite. So I wish that I had known then that there's kind of no wrong way. As long as you're doing something that you love, then there's no wrong way. You could do college, you could do community college, you could do an associate's degree or no degree. Like, it really doesn't matter. As long as you find something that you're good at and that you love, that's all that matters, And I think when I was in high school, I was like, I must go to college to get a good job so that I can make lots of money. And I think that was my driving force. And now it's kind of like, I'm glad I went, but I wish that I wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself to like be this successful, crazy, great person, and that I could have just been like, what makes me happy,
How did having your daughter change things when you were in college?
Yeah, so I'm like first generation to go to college, and I'm like first generation Mexican American. So that made my life harder in general. But when I decided I'm gonna go to college, I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I kind of had to do everything on my own just because my family had no experience with it and we didn't have the financial means. So it was a big deal that I was in college. So it was a really big bummer when I got pregnant. Not to say that, like, obviously my daughter's the best thing that's ever happened to me, but it kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I went through all that trouble and now I can't finish out my degree. It was a really difficult thing for me. And having to be a mom and finish my degree, years later was really difficult. So I think, as difficult as it was, like, anything's possible, honestly. Like, I would put her to bed at 8 and I'd be doing homework till 11, and then wake up at 5 the next morning, go to work. I'm lucky that, my husband was like, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it great. And we're definitely 50-50 kind of thing. But it's been hard. It was really hard. And a lot of the decisions that we've made for the careers and our jobs and all that stuff, I mean, it all kind of revolves around my daughter. But I love my job. So it all worked out.
How are you inspired by your daughter and your family?
Yeah, so like I said, my senior year, I got pregnant. It was not planned, but we kind of both just said, we're going to do this and she deserves the best. And so we kind of put all of our hopes and dreams and lives on hold and focused on her. And she was a really difficult child. She cried a lot. I don't think she slept for like 2 whole years. And she actually ended up having some of learning difficulties and speech delays, and she has sensory processing disorder. So a lot of the work that I do has been really helpful with her, just because I know of the resources available and I know what kinds of supports she can get and what might be helpful. And she, goes to different kinds of therapies, an occupational therapist and tutoring. And my job has helped me stay organized for her, keeping all those appointments and scheduling things. And my job, thankfully, is really, really flexible. So they allow me to just work around her appointments and her time.
Can you describe your career journey?
So I went to school to Pacific University to study to be a special education teacher. My senior year, I got pregnant with my daughter. So I kind of missed out on the last semester. And after I had her, I kind of had to put stuff on hold. But I worked in a special education classroom, and I very quickly realized that the teacher didn't really get to spend time with the kiddos as much. She was more like doing paperwork, and I didn't really like that. So after I was able to go back and finish my degree, I worked for some attorneys and did some legal work. And then my little sister's case manager actually approached me and said, "Hey, we have some openings at my job, and I think you'd be really great at it." So I kind of looked into it and I applied, and I do a lot of case management for people with disabilities. So I kind of stumbled upon it. I didn't know that it was even a possibility, but a lot of what I studied kind of has helped me and my job experience. So
How does your family inspire you?
my parents had 5 girls. I'm one of the youngest. I have 3 older sisters. They're 10, 11, and 12 years older than me, so quite a bit older. And then I have a little sister who's a year and a half younger than me, and she has Down syndrome. But we're all super, super close. We all live in Salem. We see each other at least a couple times a week. We're always, texting. We have a group message with all of us, and we're always just like updating each other. We get together at least once every weekend or once a week, and we all have dinner together. And if I ever need to like drop off my daughter because I need to go do something, like I just call one of my sisters or my mom, and I can drop her off. So that's always really nice. And same for them, if they need to go do something, I'll watch their kiddos too. We're just very big and very loud. And it's always fun, It's a lot, but it's fun.
How are you inspired by your younger sister?
Yeah, so she's a year and a half younger than me, so we're pretty close in age. So I just remember growing up and being so annoyed that she got so much more attention than me. Like when she started walking, I was like, I've been walking, why don't I get attention? And you get older and you realize like, oh, it's because that's a really big accomplishment for her. And you start realizing that all the extra attention is just because that's what she needs. And so then I started really playing that role of caretaker too. I would pick her up from her bus from school and, watch her after school and make sure she was fed and make sure she was safe. So I had to grow up pretty fast, but I learned a lot. I learned how to be kind and caring and selfless. And I also learned like the amazing, like pure love that she gives and the pure excitement that she has. Like,
what made you want to become a case manager?
So at the time, I was working for the attorneys and I wasn't getting paid very much. So honestly, the first thing that sparked was really more like the pay and the benefits because I had a little girl. And so that's kind of what made me look into it. And then once I looked into it, then I kind of I read the description of the job and, it was like, do you like helping people? And do you like to work with people with disabilities? And so that's kind of where I got interested. But initially it was actually the money and the benefits. So
what do you want to see for all of your customers?
So I want to make sure that they have all the supports that they need. I want to make sure that everybody treats them equally. Just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they need to be treated any differently. They have the same rights, and I want them to be happy. I want them to have a better life because of the supports that they have in their life and because I can help connect them to things. I just want them to be happy. I want them to have a good life.